Everyone, welcome back. So before we dive into episode 2, I would like to thank all my Instagram, YouTube, as well as my Medium family for supporting me in my journey. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. It always encourages me to do new videos so that you can be helpful from that. So saying that, let's jump into our episode 2, where we'll be having a conversation with our HR professional who has more than 10 years of experience. So let's welcome Mr. Atish Tiwari. Welcome, Atish Tiwari.
Hi, thank you, Ravi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me over this show.
Great. It's great having you on our show.
Yeah.
So let's start with a few questions. So
Sure.
how did your journey started after completing your undergrad?
Well, I think I always had interest in HR because while completing my 12th as well as graduation, I used to work part-time for an organization which was slightly into hiring, most likely into campus recruitment. So that sort of generated interest in talent acquisition. And when I started my job search after graduation, I initially obviously applied to HR, but then having no background in it, it wasn't directly into HR. So I got into customer support, and after a couple of years, through an internal job posting, I was selected for an HR role, which started with operations and eventually ended in talent acquisition. So that was my only experience in India, which was for about almost 9 years before moving here to Canada.
Oh, that's good experience, Atish Tiwari. Like you have really 9 years of experience.
Yeah.
So like, how would your day usually be? So what are some key responsibilities that you work on? Like what are the in your HR department?
Well, one thing that I've learned over the years is any HR role, as a matter of fact, doesn't have a typical day as such. There's no 9 to 5. I wouldn't say like you work throughout the day, but then every day is different because it brings in a lot of different challenges, situations, and you have to sail through with your experience. So with my experience, like I said, I started off with HR operations, more into onboarding, creating employee numbers, and then maintaining files and things like that. And then I moved into talent acquisition, where I did end-to-end hiring for corporate roles into customer support, technical support, payroll, backend, etc. So yeah, those were some of the things that I did back in India. And here in Canada, I've got more variety of experience into manufacturing, pharmaceutical, and industrial.
Great.
Yeah.
So did you find any difference working in India and Canada? So is there any difference that you found, and why?
I would say the core job duties or the model remains the same, but then it comes to certain employment laws that differ from a country to another country. And wherever you go, you obviously learn something new about it. The way you do things back in India could be different here in the way what you do. So yeah, I've learned definitely a lot as to how would you conduct yourself day to day based on my 1 year of postgraduate diploma that I did here in Canada before entering into the employment market.
Great. Good to know that, Atish. And coming to the few questions that has been asked in my Instagram channel, so I'll be asking them. So how do you review, like when you get a large amount of resumes?
Well, I think there are some high demand roles which obviously generate a lot of interest. And like you rightly said, there are probably sometimes hundreds, even thousands of resumes. And getting to all of those is definitely a big challenge. So the way I've followed is we had an applicant tracking system, but not an artificial intelligence until last year or so. So it would start with first come, first serve basis, and based on whatever I like, obviously then I'll go ahead, phone screen them and present them to the hiring managers and go from there. So it also depends on how early you apply, right?
Mhm.
Because if a job posting has been posted, say today, and you apply 15 days later,
Mhm.
then obviously your resume is not going to get considered. So
Mhm.
as per like what I have learned here in Canada is every job posting has to be advertised for 5 business days.
Mhm.
So when a job posting has been put there, if I start reviewing resumes for the first 5 days, my aim is to find somebody who's applied in those 5 days.
Mhm.
So that's my way of doing things. And then, like I said, if somebody has applied way too far from when the job posting was posted,
Mhm.
then obviously they don't stand a chance.
Okay, got
Yeah.
you. So that's good to know. So there's something new that I've got to know right now.
Mhm.
So, like, how much time do you take to review one resume? So, and what are the things that you look into in the resume?
Yeah. This I think it's out there and on Google as well. Like
Okay.
normally, any recruiter or any HR professional would say that 7 seconds is an ideal time to review a
Okay.
resume. It might sound absurd to someone
Mhm.
who is hearing probably this for the first time, but
Okay.
yes, this is something that I've learned.
Mhm.
Like 7 seconds is what usually it takes. It could take longer. It depends on what sort of resume I'm looking at.
Okay.
If I'm looking at a resume that's focused, approached, people are not looking for fancy resumes,
Mhm.
pictures, and all of that.
Mhm.
If you have your skills outlined, your resume is formatted properly, your experience has everything important and not like basic job duties there, then all that, then that's what you're looking at. So that's what I would say. Looking first impression is having a great resume there.
Mhm.
And if I like the resume, obviously, then I'll move ahead and review certain other things and then eventually contact the person and go from there.
Right. So, like, according to you, like, what is the ideal resume? So, how many pages a resume should be? So, is that 1 page, 2 page? Like,
Um, if you have like just a couple of years of experience,
Mhm.
then definitely not more than 1 page.
Okay.
And obviously, say my case, if I have like about 10 plus years of experience, then fitting everything on that could be a challenge. If I have
Okay.
like 4 different companies,
Mhm.
then it becomes difficult to just put everything there.
Mhm.
You don't want it too short, you don't want it too long. So I would say 1.5 page to
Okay.
maximum 2 page is an ideal resume.
Okay. So, like,
Yeah.
what about cover letter? So, usually people
Yeah.
write, like 2 to 3 pages, and they usually write a cover letter just to give a glance about their resume. So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, cover letter definitely is important because a lot of companies do ask for cover letter for a reason
Mhm.
that they want to see if they have everything that they're looking for. Because when you introduce yourself, that's a good way of presenting yourself, highlighting certain skills and then your achievements in that, and that's a good way to start off with. And like I said, it's a need for a lot of companies, so having a cover letter is important. And then having, I would say, a tailor-made resume for each of the job postings that
Mhm.
you apply for is also important, and not just
Okay.
one standard resume
Mhm.
that you follow across.
Okay.
Because every job posting is different, every company is different, and I'm not saying you should add things that you have not done or you don't have experience in,
Mhm.
but then tweaking the resume a little bit according to the job description usually gets it through the applicant tracking system easily.
Okay.
So that's why it's usually said that you need to tweak your resume based on the job description.
Okay. Good to know that,
Mhm.
Harish. And there is like AI system as well as human, right? So
Yeah.
which one is better? Like to overcome AI, like what do we need to do, and like how should that process go?
I think it all boils down to the cost of hiring and
Okay.
where the companies are trying to be more efficient, fast, those sort of things. And obviously, like you said, artificial intelligence is not only in hiring, but a lot of aspects
Yeah.
of our day-to-day jobs as well as personal life as well.
Yeah.
So I think overcoming that at this point in time
Okay.
I don't see a way, because that's where everybody is moving into. So yes, traditional method, I still have, I would say, my inclination towards that, because certain things that a human can decide, obviously a machine cannot, or a tool cannot, because it runs on an algorithm.
Yeah.
And human intelligence comes into place where certain times it's about your gut, right? It's something that you feel about that particular individual, that you would want to give them a chance. Obviously, a tool doesn't have all those emotions, so obviously that's, I think, the biggest difference there.
Good to know that. And coming to the next one, so like I have few friends in undergrad, so they have got rejected in the HR round. So do you have any suggestions for them?
I think first, obviously, I would want to know who they are and what their resumes are. But in general, if you ask me, then you got to have certain things right to get to a particular stage. If someone has rejected you in an HR round, which is definitely a basic round, then your basics are wrong somewhere or the other. It could be your resume has not been properly formatted, or you have certain skills there, but you're not able to speak about it. So confidence is really, really important when you give an interview, or even when you have like a conversation with anybody, because certain times you forget something, but when you're confident about it, you don't lose your thoughts, and then you can obviously come back to it and gather your thoughts and then answer that, if not immediately, probably sometime later. So it is, again, goes back to how your resume is, and then how you've been approaching about the whole situation. How good is your LinkedIn profile? Because these days, I'm sure you might have experienced, like when you apply for a job, you see somebody from that company views your profile. Most of the times it is anonymous, but sometimes you get to see somebody has viewed your profile. That means they are checking your profile. So having a solid LinkedIn profile is really important, updating it on a regular basis. How active are you? And what sort of networking you do on LinkedIn is important. So all those things again contribute. And then when you go for an interview during HR rounds, I'm sure you must have experienced this again. Like they ask you about the company that you've applied for. Not that they don't know about their own company, but then they want to know how good or well prepared you are. So it is important to know about what sort of a company you have applied for, what are they into, some basic numbers, some basic data. And then being thorough with the job description is again important, because I've experienced personally, like when I call somebody and when I ask them to like explain me about their understanding of the job, I would say 5 out of 10 people fail. Right? And this is at the entry level. Experienced folks, they know how to tackle an interview, but when it comes to freshers, I think this is one thing that I've noticed. Like they say, oh, I don't know,
So
I forgot, I've been applying to a lot of jobs. You can't do that, because when a recruiter calls you, the first thing they ask you is, are you available to talk? And if you feel that you are prepared, then say, yes, I can talk. If you need time, you give them a time on a different date or a different thing, and they call you, take that time to prepare yourself and give your interview. So those are certain things which are again important. Right? Nobody puts a gun on your head and say that, no, we have to do this interview now.
So if they're not able to say that, I think that's the point of rejection, I guess. So one of the things that they need to understand is they have to know the job roles that they are applying for. And I think the second one is confidence. So these two are the main parameters, I believe.
Correct.
Right. So coming to the, like, since you talked about LinkedIn, let's say I want to get a reference from one of the professional. So how should I approach it, and how should I make a positive impression on that person so that I can get a reference from him?
I need to understand if it is reference or a referral for a job. If it is reference, then if I don't know somebody, then providing my reference to them in terms of getting a job, like I mean, references usually happen when you get selected for a
Yeah.
job. So those references are somebody whom you have reported to or whom you have worked with, usually in a higher position than you are. So those references are completely different, and obviously those have to be of people whom you have worked with, who know your work ethics, who know what you have done there. Because if I say have to refer an XYZ and I don't know what they've been doing in terms of their job duties and all, and I guess like questioned on those things, I obviously won't be able to answer. So that reference part is different. But if it is a referral, then yes, it's obviously a great idea to reach out to those individuals working from that company, express your interest. When a lot of people they reach out to me on LinkedIn, they don't address me by my name. So that is again very important. I'm not saying it's an offensive thing, but then when you are reaching out to somebody, say, hey Atesh, I'm so and so, and I'm interested in this job posting. So make an effort to present yourself professionally, and not just saying I'm interested in this job, can you refer me? It's like you're sending a mass email or a mass attempt to hundreds of people. So there comes again your intent and the interest in that job. So take some time, put some effort there, and present yourself in a way, because you're marketing yourself, you're selling yourself there. So you have to be a great salesman. Right? When I'm talking to a candidate, and if I have to talk about the company that I'm hiring for, I become that salesman there. Obviously, I have to talk about the company, how good we are, how well their career would be with us, where can they see themselves. So those are the things I talk about then. So it is an equal responsibility, right? So yeah.
Okay, so let's say like if I want to get a referral from you, so what are the things that you look into? So like, should I mail, give a big message, or like a small glance about it? So like, what do you look at it?
I would say keep it brief. And like most of the recruiters like me, we have our email addresses right there. So you can email me directly through LinkedIn, or you can send me a message. I know LinkedIn again has a premium feature, so it limits you after number of attempts to like not able to send that across. So always email or reach out to the respective individual. Like I said, be professional, keep it short. They don't need to know everything in that message, because obviously you're going to send your resume.
The main points,
right? So your resume is again important there. Have that attachment, and then you got to follow up with them, right? Because if there are 100 people reaching out to me, then I will obviously make an attempt to get back to them. But then if something happens and I'm not able to reach out, don't be shy. Just follow up with them probably after a couple of days, send them a reminder, then give them another 2 days, send them a reminder, and keep doing. Because if I need a job, then obviously I need to make an attempt. Same goes with everybody else.
Great, good to know that. And coming to the next one, let's say there is a scenario where a developer wants to shift into a cybersecurity field. So will that person consider as a fresher again? So how does the process go?
Well, if there are like two opposite industries or fields that you're looking about, then obviously the second industry that you want to get into, your first experience, I wouldn't say you would be a fresher completely, because most of the times we talk about transferable skills. Those could be like not everything, but there could be a handful of skills that you can still transfer from that job to this job. So we look at those as well. That's where we assess the potential of a candidate. So it is important. Certain times it all boils down to their education, because certain roles require solid education. Certain roles require some sort of a certification or experience. So if that is a requirement, then obviously like you cannot apply to that and expect that you get hired. Just to give you an example, for example, say somebody wants to become a nurse. So there is a license that they need to get into. Just having that ambition or interest in that won't make you a nurse.
Yeah.
So you need to get licensed, you need to go through a certain series of things, become what you want to get into, and then get there, right? So
Oh, nice. Good to know that. And let's say if a person wants to shift in the same company, so let's say a person is working in Amazon,
yeah,
and initially he has worked in a call center, but he wants to go into a, like let's say developing field. So will there be any, advantage when he moves into the same company?
yes, because I'll take my own example. Like I told you early in the conversation that I wanted to get into HR. So when I worked with ADP, I initially applied, or rather expressed my interest in HR, but then I didn't have experience as such, because what I did before that was more on a part-time basis, so more or less sort of fresher there.
Okay.
So I still remember my recruiter at that time, who eventually was my boss when I left the company. He told me, like, you could probably get into customer support where we are hiring right now, and through an internal job posting, obviously by then you'll gain experience about the company and all that, and if something comes up, then you can get into HR. And that's how basically I got into HR. I worked in customer support for about 2.5 years, and through an internal job posting, I got into HR. And since then, it has always been HR. So, yes, it is good to be in the company where you firstly want to be there.
Okay.
Right? There are things you want to be in a particular job, you want to be in a particular company. So, together, it could be possible when you grow internally. So, and when you apply internally, obviously, the first preference is to develop the internal talent. All the companies talk about this.
Okay.
There will be rejections, but it's not that the company doesn't want you to grow. It's just that you might have certain shortcomings that you can look at and be positive for the next time. So, yeah, growing in the same company is definitely possible.
Okay, it's always advantage that you are moving in the same company instead of like different industries.
Yeah.
Good to know that. And coming to the next one, let's consider a scenario where a fresher, a mid-range professional, and an experienced professional, so they're applying for the jobs.
Okay.
So how do you process them? Like, what are things that you look into these three different scenarios?
I think first thing is the sort of roles they are applying for, the amount of experience they get in. For freshers, obviously, I'm assuming they're applying for entry-level positions. So it's mostly to do with basic criteria of if they have certain sort of education, if that's the requirement, and if they have any potential skills that I can identify on the resume based on their say volunteer experience. Certain people have internship experience, anything that I can pick up, then obviously I'll look for those things.
Okay.
And someone who's like slightly experienced up to the mid-level, then obviously they're applying for those sort of positions. So looking for the immediate relevant experience is what most of the people do, because that's where experience counts in.
Yeah.
Right? So I would look for that first. If not, then again, transferable skills is important in this case as well. If I see that's that, and say if I want to just talk to them and understand more, then I might just do a phone interview to gather more information. Right? And coming to a most like senior or an experienced person, usually at that stage of your career, you're pretty focused and you know where do you want to get into. It is very rare, like somebody with 10 years of experience in, say, cybersecurity would want to switch into payroll. It doesn't happen. Once you've built your profile and you've got to a stage, you always stick to that. So those resumes are usually very focused. Again, I'm not saying 100 out of 100, probably most of them, 90 out of 100. And they are very focused. They know where they want to get into. And when we talk to them, it's usually a very straightforward process and things happen very smoothly at that level. So that's again coming with the experience of interviews, rejections, and everything that they've come up to that level. So that's how I would probably categorize them.
So like I've seen few job roles in which like it's entry level job role, but they're asking like maybe 1 or 2 years of experience. So do you have any comments on this one? Like how to break into that job role or something like that?
Yeah, it depends on how they have worded the experience. Certain times you would see must have 1 to 2 years of experience. And there is another way of looking at it is good to have 1 to 2 years of experience.
Okay.
If it says must have, that means they are definitely looking at someone with that amount of experience. If it says good to have, then that means they are open to looking at someone with no experience. But if they have it, it's like a bonus.
Okay.
Right? So that's again important to see in the job description. Again, like I said, most of the people don't read the job description.
Yeah.
And applying to all the jobs possible won't get you a job. You need to know where you want to get into. Right? Filter out jobs that you feel are good for you, because it's not about just getting a job. It's about how you will progress in that job, how you will grow in that job. And you need to have that vision that after a couple of years, where would you see in yourself in that job? Is that company right? Is that job right? How has the company been doing? It's not always about interviewing a candidate. You also need to, on your personal level, I wouldn't say interview, but do your research about the company as to how the company has been doing, whether they have been good in the market. What are certain reviews? Go on Glassdoor, read about company reviews, what the employees, ex-employees have been talking about it. So certain things obviously matter, because you yourself want to associate with a company that's good for you and not just any other company, right? So that's why it is important to have that approach, right?
Okay. So and like obviously in job roles, let's say they ask around maybe like 10 technologies and I only know around 5 to 6 technologies.
Yeah.
So will I be in? Like what other qualities that you look into in that applicant?
So there's never a perfect candidate. That is for sure. You will never find a perfect candidate anywhere. And that's what I talk about with my hiring managers when I do the intake sessions. Intake is nothing but when we get a requisition assigned, we usually have an intake session with the hiring managers to understand their expectations, what they're looking for, to understand what the salary range is, and XYZ. And during those discussions, it is very important for a recruiter to have the hiring manager's expectations in control and not expect somebody who's like a perfect. You will never find that, right? So setting those expectations is on a recruiter's part when talking to the hiring managers and letting them know about how the market is right now. So educating them about the market, whether will we find that sort of a candidate or no. And all this comes with an experience. And if you know that it is difficult to find somebody with those expectations, then you need to let the hiring manager know. So I usually do that. Obviously, there is back and forth in that, but then those are healthy discussions. And you always need to go with data to present it to the hiring managers to let them know that these are certain challenges if you're going that route. So if they still want to go ahead, you can only try. Right? So that's why it is important at that stage to set those expectations. But then when it comes out in the market, if the jobs are still being posted like that, then I would say just give it a shot, because they're expecting way too much.
Yeah.
If you feel, because as an individual, you know that they are asking a lot of requirements. They're like 10 technologies is difficult, right? And everything changes every day.
True, I agree. And coming to salaries, like since you spoke about salary, like let's say I've got an opportunity, and let's say you have gave me an opportunity of 70K, but I want more. Like let's say I have maybe I have gave like around I need 80K or something like that. So what are things that you look into, an applicant, and you'll be agreeing to that particular amount?
It all depends on what the range is, because every role has a range that gets decided within the company. Right. So there are a lot of things, like when the numbers are run on a bell curve, it gives you the median, high, low, and then the companies usually go with the median number, and they know they want to hire at this stage. Because when you're hiring a set of people, it cannot be like you're hiring somebody at 100K and somebody at 50K. It cannot be a huge difference. That's where we call it as a pay equality. So that's why you try and put them in a bucket where they are close to each other. It cannot be same for everybody, and it cannot be like way too indifferent for everybody. So it has to be in and around that particular number. That's why we come to that median number. Right. So when you have to negotiate, there's no harm in asking, like, my expectation is this. So is there a possibility? What's the range for the role? And certain times, like I said, there are some roles which come with fixed number. So it is up to the recruiters to disclose that this is what the salary is. And there's unfortunately no room to like go higher. So if they've told you very clearly, that means they're going with that number. But if they've said like there's some wiggle room around it, then obviously you're in that zone where you can probably negotiate, and if not 80, get to 75. Right. So it all depends on those discussions. Never shy about like asking. There's no harm in asking. So just talk about it, and if it happens, well. If it doesn't happen, then you know what's good for you.
Maybe I think like even I know few people who can bluff, right? Like I can say that I've got a job in which I'm getting paid around 90K. So will that be any advantage? Like,
Well, sometimes probably yes. If the company knows that the role is a niche role. And the candidate is great, and they want to hire that individual, then yeah, certain times candidates do play out the companies. And if that role, say, is something where you have a lot of talent available, then the recruiter might just move on to someone else, saying that, okay, your expectation is way too high. And if that happens, then obviously the candidate will say, okay, I'm fine, I'll come back to 80 or whatever. So there are like a lot of permutations and combinations of that.
Good to know that. So like there's also one of the scenario where like my friend applied to a company, but till now there is no response. So will usually companies do respond like, okay, you are rejected, or you're not, maybe you'll be having interview soon. Like some companies, they just don't respond. So is there any comments on this one?
Well, these days it's a lot to do with the applicant tracking systems, and most of the responses come generic, and that comes through system when the resume gets rejected. Like I've worked with a certain technologies like Workday, Phenom people and all, and when we change the status of an individual, it sends out a message to that individual that your resume has been reviewed, or if say it is declined, and for some reason the resume has not been selected. So we get to choose that reason. But companies who are not like using those tools, and it depends on the individual who's looking at the resumes, coordinating the interviews, and then they have to send the rejection emails, and probably it becomes too much for them to deal with so much, and that could be the miss that happens. But yeah, if you notice these days, a lot of companies are sending out rejection emails, no matter it is generic, but you at least get to know. And I don't want to like sound contrary, but like I said, nothing is perfect. There is a certain percentage where comes your question as to why don't we hear. That would be like various other reasons. It could be like they have hired somebody. Sometimes companies wait until that individual joins, because you never know, they might be a no-show on the day of the joining as well. And then in those cases, they have to go back to other candidates. So they don't want to immediately say no. So it might come in a little late as well. So that could be one of the situations.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I did face the same situation in the starting. So I did apply to many companies, and still till now I didn't got any response.
Yeah.
So yeah. So coming to the next question, like what is it? Like, what suggestions do you give to a student like who want to take a career at HR? So is there any certifications that they have to do?
Well, yes, it is important to get some formal education because HR has different components. HR again has like different departments as well. So it depends on where they want to get into. HR has operations, HR has talent acquisition, HR has payroll, and then HR has a business partner, which is journalist role. So it depends on where they want to get into. And for all of those sub fields, it definitely requires some knowledge, some education. So if you were not able to complete certain formal education at your graduation or post-graduation level, then there's no harm to probably do a postgraduate level. Like when I moved to Canada, I did have a postgraduate diploma in human resources back home. The reason why I did one more here is because I wanted to understand how things happen here in Canada. And I wanted to set myself up to that success by going through a course, understanding things, and then getting into employment market. So that's about the education. And when it comes to certifications, yes, there are a lot of certifications which are in demand, which is your CHRP, Certified Human Resources Professional, Certified Human Resources Leader, CHRL. So those courses have a lot of weightage in the market. So those are certain things people can get into.
Good to know that. So if a person who is coming from India, so if he does these certifications, does that matter here?
Yes, it does. So India has PHR, which is professional HR, and here it is called as CHRP. More or less, it has the same weightage because the modules are somewhere or the other closely tied. So someone who has done that, I wouldn't say they'll immediately be able to write CHRP there, but it will be recognized. So it is also important to have something back home, and when you're coming here, it will definitely be an advantage. It's just that you might have to refresh yourself on certain things based on the Canadian market, because obviously, like I said, two different countries, two different ways of doing things, so it will differ.
So like, taking those examinations, so will there be any discounts? Like, I know I got a few messages where people were asking, like, is there any time during which we can get discounts on those certifications?
From what I know, for the CHRP course, students do have some sort of, I would say, discount, because back in 2016, when I was a student, I did register for that. So the rate that I registered at and what a normal individual would do, there was some difference. That's what we were told, because they were here in our college, like to conduct that introduction session. So it again depends on if they have a tie-up with that college or what, and things might have changed in the last 8 years or 7 years. So it's always good to like talk to them and check with them. Most of the times I would say it is standard, but yeah, when it comes to students, then it can probably be a little different there.
That's good to know. I think like it will be helpful to a lot of people who are trying to go into HR profession. So coming to the next one, what do you think about future work will be? Like, will that be a hybrid or a work from home or back to the office? So will there be any effect on employees on this?
I think it's going to be more of a hybrid, because nobody was probably prepared for the pandemic, right? So it has brought in a new perspective with a lot of employers. It was probably that belief that work happens a lot at the office and not at home. But then due to COVID, a lot of people work from home. In fact, almost all of us. And worked probably efficiently as what we would do in the office. That's why it has been continuing even now when COVID has sort of vanished. So I personally feel it might still continue with the hybrid mode. Certain roles where the employer feels they could probably cut down on cost, and those could probably be still remote, like customer service roles where you have to take calls and answer queries and things like that. Certain roles that require you to be there, those cannot be changed. Like, it all again depends on what sort of role you are into. If you have somebody like somebody working in a manufacturing cannot work from home or even in a hybrid model, because they have to run machines and make products. So it all again depends on what sort of a role you are into. But yeah, my instinct says probably it will still be hybrid.
Okay. So do you think will there be any effect on productivity? Like, let's say a person who is working from home, so compared with the person who is going to office, so will there be any difference in productivity? Like, what do you think about it?
I don't think so, because everybody loves their job, and it doesn't like make too much of a difference. And like I said, last few years have been a witness to it, that things can still happen from home. It can be as productive as what people can be at the work site. So I don't think so it will make too much of a difference.
Nice, good to know that.
Yeah.
So coming to the next question, so do you think there will be any effect on immigrants in this job employees? Because a lot of companies are laying off the people, right? So like, what do you think about it?
I think I've had this discussion with a few of the folks who have just come into Canada, and I wouldn't say they did a mistake by coming here, because it's wrong. I would say probably the timing is not great. We all know we are sort of in recession, not exactly into it, but then it's a harsh reality, right? Layoffs are happening due to various other factors. When I talk to like people who ask me about like why are we not getting jobs or why is it so difficult, it's not only about the employer and the applicant. There are a lot of things that come into play. The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has obviously disturbed the supply chain. The COVID, after COVID, there are a lot of things again have not been going well in the supply chain area. There are certain products which are not available. There's a waiting period on the automobile industry because certain parts are dependent through like from a different country. And then all those things boil down to what is happening in that particular country as well. The interest rates are going high, companies are laying off. So employers obviously are cautious, and it also depends on what time of the year it is. And usually people know around this time of the year, which is December, things start to get very slow, especially in the North American region, right? So the reason for that is like a lot of people want to take off during the Christmas because it's a big festival, right? So it will slow down a lot of things around this time and probably pick up pace by second or third week of January. So it's not only like one reason why it could have been happening. There are like multiple reasons that could have been happening, right? If you talk about the pharmaceutical companies, they've made good money during COVID because it was their time and people were hired like crazily at that time. And when things started to get back to normal, then they didn't have too much of a business and they had to let go a lot of people, right? So that's why it could be that, right? So there are like a lot of things. So yeah, students coming in at this time, it is difficult because earlier their part-time jobs, what students used to get into were more of a survival or a student related jobs. But now with so much of disruption in the employment market, even regular people are taking up those jobs. So obviously that will reduce the number of jobs for students, right? So that focus has now shifted on the regular workforce as well, because people want to work, make ends meet. So that's why it's become very, very competitive, right? So yeah.
True, I agree. Like even for entry level jobs, like a person who's having like maybe 2 to 3 years of experience is competing for that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. So I think we have talked a lot about professional roles. So let me talk about like what is your hobbies? Like what do you do in your free time?
Um, I love to play PlayStation.
Oh,
That's something that I do when I get time. I like to go out, go on drives and things like that, and then maintain the house when I get time to do so. Become a
okay.
handyman.
So I think like you're really a gamer. So what games do you play? Like
Um, I wouldn't like say I'm a gamer, but it's just like a childhood thing that I've
okay,
probably kept continue to follow even now.
okay,
So I like mostly the story mode games that are
okay,
pretty lengthy in nature
okay.
and they are like thrilling. So those sort of games that I prefer.
Nice good to know that. So coming to the next one, like you have started your career as a student,
Mm-hmm.
and right now you have bought a big house with worth million, more than million, I would say. But like, how did you got into buying this house, and do you have any suggestions that you can give to a maybe a students or a professional who want to buy a house here in
Um,
Canada?
I would say it's a process and it just doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a lot of planning, a lot of focus, and with the job market, we all know it is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So the sooner you buy, the better. I would say, even if it is small, you should just get into it because you'll make money out of any house.
Mm-hmm.
You will never be in a loss when you purchase a property. No, not only in Canada, anywhere, right? So the sooner you get into it, the better it is because it is obviously going to get more and more expensive. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many people coming in, and obviously everybody wants to have a permanent roof on their head.
Mm-hmm.
So their focus is that. So if you know you can manage your expenses, then like I said, plan it out well and have everything planned out on a piece of paper so that you know the numbers are adding up. It shouldn't be a case where you've committed to it and you're not able to fulfill
Mm-hmm.
and you're not able to pay, then it's not that. Even like that's why I said, even if it is small, it's okay. Get into it, utilize
Okay.
the government program of first time home buyer where you just
Okay.
have to pay the 5%
Mm-hmm.
and you can still purchase a house, right?
Okay.
So that is very, very important. And if you have saved say money in your RRSPs over a period of
Mm-hmm.
time, then you can withdraw that, which is again at no interest to you when you get about, I think, 12 months to repay that back. So utilize that part of it
Mm-hmm.
and use for your down payment because it helps. I didn't know about it. Probably
Mm-hmm.
I would have used it, but then now I know it's one resource that you can look at. And you can only withdraw that when you're like buying or renovating your house. So why not just do it when you have to buy the house? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think those
Yeah,
are
I
the things.
think that's really good suggestion. I think our friends would be helpful for this.
Mhm.
And you said about first time home buyer. So
Yeah.
should we need to be a peer for that? Like even a student can buy a house.
Yeah, no. I think it was the case until some time ago when students or even people who were on work permit could buy a house in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
But I think not last year, but in 2021 is when it changed that you need to be a permanent resident
Mm-hmm.
to buy a house. So yeah, things have changed now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm a permanent resident
Hmm.
and like I have two friends who are students.
Yeah.
So we can, combinedly buy a house, right? So will that be a possible or like will there be an effect?
I think they cannot get on to the application or be
Okay,
the
the two
owners
friends. Okay.
because of their status in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
You can be there, but then when you try to buy, but there are people who are not eligible, your application goes in as a single applicant, and based on
Okay.
your income is what the bank will decide whether you can
Okay,
buy or
okay,
no.
okay, okay.
Right? So again, I'm not an expert in this, so disclaimer, things can be different, but
Yeah,
that's what
but yeah,
my knowledge says.
okay, good to know that.
Yeah.
So, like, one question. So, like, how do you keep yourself updated in this HR field? Like, what are things that you do?
I would say reading.
Okay,
So definitely read, because I learned this from my bosses back in India,
okay.
even then, that you got to read the economic column to understand more about how the market is behaving, how
Oh,
things are happening. So keep yourself updated, because like I told you, during the intake meetings, you need to educate the hiring managers. These are certain things that you can talk about. When you know how the market is going to behave or is behaving already, then those pointers can be used during your intake sessions as well. So read about those, follow the news apps or channels to again understand a lot of things, especially from an employment standpoint. People might think that something happening at a global level, how does it impact the employment market? Well, it does, right? It does. A company's share, if it is going up, then that means they're doing good, and the company usually doesn't think about laying off people. But on the contrary, if it is going down and down and down, and they know that they're not doing well, then obviously they have to lay off people, right? So now you think about the share market, like if you're following the company's share and what's happening with the company, then you'll be able to relate,
okay.
right? So that's another one dipstick that you can think of. So like that, there are a lot of things that factor to the employment market. So it is important or crucial to keep yourself updated with those sort of news, and yeah, use them wisely.
Great. Good to know that. I think a lot of information in this session. So
Thank
we are
you.
in the end of our podcast. So do you have any suggestions for students who are searching for jobs? Like, what suggestions do you want to give to our friends who are watching our podcast?
I would say keep trying. I know it is difficult right now. There are a lot of people looking for jobs, so it's not going to be easy, but keep trying. Have a great resume out there. There are like a lot of community centers that could help you with getting your resume prepared. There are a lot of free sites that could help you put your resume in place, as basic as Indeed. Indeed has a feature where it could give you a basic resume formatted properly at no cost. So search about those things and get your resume in place. Make obviously personal attempts to reach out to people on LinkedIn. Have a great LinkedIn profile. Make that attempt to have a smile on your face. Drop your resume. Follow up, which is very, very important, because just dropping it will not work out. Just follow up and have that regular contact. And like I said, connecting on LinkedIn with people and making those great connections can always help. Somebody can refer you somewhere. So yeah, I think these are certain things that you can look at. I know, like I said, it is difficult, but it will work out.
Thank you very much, Radish, for
No
your
problem.
suggestions. And thanks everyone for watching our podcast. If you have not subscribed to my please do subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.